Welcome to the offseason here in the Houston Oilers franchise. This season was really fun. We went 9-8. We did not make the playoffs, but we did have a very successful year in my opinion. The Eagles ended up beating the Ravens in the Super Bowl this year, and they get, their second ring in 7 years or something like that it's been. But we have a lot of work to do going into this offseason. We were close to having a Rookie of the Year in Marvin Mims Jr., only to be short of Rashee Rice for the Chiefs. Obviously, it had to be the Chiefs in our same division. But the first order of business here to start out this offseason is to hire a coach. Now, one thing is that we do have a pretty good offensive coordinator, and I wouldn't say like he is the most skilled, but we were a top 5 offense. So I'm going to be realistic here, and I'm going to make sure that I keep him around. But our defense, we were dead last. It is imperative to replace our defensive coordinator going into next season. So we end up finding a guy here that is really good in Rodgers. Like, he looks pretty good. Like, he has a lot of skilled trees filled out already has 10. He was fired, and now he comes over to be our defensive coordinator, and that allows me to use our points on our current offensive coordinator. I want to develop him, and we will develop the offensive line a little bit, make sure that obviously going into next season, that's kind of shored up. Now, I want to note that going into this offseason, we have a big retirement, and it's Chris Harris Jr. Second in the league in interceptions with 6. He was behind Chidobe Awuzie, who had 7, and he's going to be a big loss. I was planning on re-signing him, not to just 1 year, but like a 2-year deal to be our slot cornerback of the future. In this offseason, we are going to be realistic, though. We are going to make realistic moves, and I want to build this team through the draft. Like, there will be free agent signings, obviously, but we will primarily be building this entire series around the draft and developing players that way. And obviously, if a guy comes in free agency, we could also pick that guy up. So here we go. Our big offseason needs coming into season number 2, cornerback. Definitely a big need because we just lost Chris Harris Jr. It was second before that retirement, but it immediately moves up to the front because we don't have any cornerbacks right now on the active roster, it seems. So we need to re-sign Bryce Hall. That's going to be a priority. 2, pass rushers. We did not sack the quarterback at all. 3, offensive tackle. We just had some shaky offensive tackle play. And then the last 2 are less important, but number 2 wide receiver and off-ball linebacker, a guy that can cover tight ends and cover running backs is definitely going to be important, and possibly even cover receivers when they are lined up in the slot if the formation says so. So the first phase of the offseason, and I will have time markers here in this video, so if you want to skip ahead, go ahead. I would much prefer you watch the whole video, but you do you. Re-signing players is going to be tough because we have a lot of guys re-signing. And like I said, I want to keep this realistic. So if a guy has 0 interest in re-signing, meaning it's all the way to the red, I am not going to go after him at all. So Robert Tonyan will hit free agency. He will not be re-signing with the team. Jalen Smith, also a part of that group. He will also not be re-signing. But if there is a little bit of interest, I will still allow myself and our team to go after them. So there's some guys here that have 0 interest at all. So we will not be going after them whatsoever. But Bryce Hall has major interest after being the number 1 cornerback last year. I think he had a very good, at least year being the number 1. Do I think he's the number 1? I'm not sure. I don't think so. I think he does lack some things such as speed, athleticism, but he does re-sign with us on a 3-year deal, so that will take him to age 29. I'm very happy about that deal. Devin Bush is looking for decent money, about $20 million total, and he will get that with a bonus, so we re-sign him to a 3-year deal as well. Kevin Dotson, one of the offensive linemen who actually had a good year, we're going to pay him realistically, give him about $20 million in total there, along with his bonus. So he re-signs. So 3 big re-signings right there. And now we move on to some questionable ones. I start with AJ Epinesa. I don't really know if I want to bring him back. He only had 2 sacks. So for now, we're going to let him walk in free agency. But Julian Okwara was a guy that did not start, and he still matched Epinesa's sacks, and he did not start. Like, I started Okwara maybe a couple of games, and he still had 2.5 sacks. So to me, if I can depend on you to rotate in and you still get some production, that's fine. I'm fine with re-signing him. Isaiah Wynn is interesting because, yeah, his ratings are pretty good. He's the 15th right tackle in the league. But I just saw too much inconsistency blocking, top edge rushers. I want to look to see what's there in free agency. But I do re-sign Matt Hennessy. Even though he didn't have the greatest year, he was cheap, so I decided to bring him back just in case we don't sign anybody in free agency. Another questionable guy was Javon Kinlaw. He had 0 sacks. He is definitely not being re-signed. Eric Curley had a pretty good back end of the season, so I started him a few games there, and he re-signs J-Ron McAllister. These were 2 easy deals to complete because they were just, guys that were there for depth. Ended up being pretty good. Greedy Williams is interesting. I'm deciding to see what's out there in free agency before signing him, so I decide to let him walk. So here we go. Free agency has opened up, and we're at stage 1 where we can have 5 active negotiations. And here are all the top players. Now, remember, we can only go after guys that are interested in our team. If they have 0 interest, we have to leave them alone. So Ryan Neal, Jordan Brooks, we could not go after those guys. Eric Armstead, we could not go after him. But the other guys are all game. So looking at, their interest in us, there's a lot of guys that have a lot of interest, and probably because they want to make some good money. They know we have the most cap room going into free agency. We have $187 million, but that number is definitely inflated because we have a lot of roster spots open. As you saw, the number of guys we had in the resign period, it looks pretty promising. But one of the most disappointing guys that has 0 interest in signing with us is Christian Wilkins. I definitely was going to go after him, and I was going to give him a major contract. It probably would have been $100 million, to be honest. If we're really being realistic in this, it would have been a $100 million contract. He had 8.5 sacks last year. That would have been perfect for the fit on our defense. One guy I considered here going after pass rusher was Chandler Jones, but he is over the hill. It's been 2 years since his last 10-sack season at least, and it's been kind of tough sledding for him the last couple of years. But I do want to bargain shop a little bit. Like, it is important to make sure that you go after guys that have the potential to be great. Like, it doesn't even have to be a guy that's going to be a 10-sack guy right away, but I like James Houston the fourth. He played for Deion Sanders at Jackson State. He went to the NFL, obviously, and then for Detroit, he had 8 sacks. I don't understand how he's not starting. I mean, he came off of, maybe he just took advantage of a really good role and got 8 sacks, but I will take that potential. I will sign him to a 3-year deal, which is very cheap. Like, I'm only paying him $2 million. I will take that, and I will hopefully get him to commit to the Oilers. Now we move over to our second need, and pass rush just wasn't deep at all in free agency, so I think we have to spend here at cornerback or defensive back. Chidobe Awuzie led the NFL in interceptions, and he is available, and still at age 29, he still got some very good years ahead of him. Rasul Douglas is here, and I really like Rasul Douglas. Now, he plays mostly in the nickel, and obviously we lost Chris Harris. We have an opening there, so he could be an option. There's Levi Wallace as well. He's still 29. He's got 90 speed. I want a guy that has pretty good speed. I also look at safety, and Micah Hyde is available. Yes, he is 34, but one thing I do like about him is that he can actually play the nickel. He's got excellent play rec. I think he would be the perfect replacement for Chris Harris Jr. Now, I think I'm going to probably play him at safety during, 3-4 situations because we have a 3-4 base defense. And then I will play him in the nickel position during times of, obviously, 3 wide when we're out there in nickel and dime and things like that. We'll see, but he has had the experience of playing both cornerback and safety, and I want to add this to the squad. He also has the player mentor tag, so he could also give our secondary extra XP. So I'm going to offer him a 2-year contract and see if he will accept that. Now, our needs kind of changed a little bit after Bob Tonyan hit free agency. Since he is no longer interested, I need to go after a tight end. So I think one thing I'm going to do is look at a younger tight end, a guy that can be around for the future. I'm looking for probably a 3-year deal with a couple of tight ends. And I look at Noah Fant, but Noah Fant is a horrible blocker, and that's going to definitely expose him a little bit. And especially when we want to run the football, that's going to be tough. But Irv Smith Jr. out of Alabama, I really liked coming out of the draft at that time. And I decided to offer Irv Smith over Noah Fant. That was a tough decision for me, but I decided to go to him over Fant, even though Fant is a dynamic, pass catching tight end. I wanted to make sure that we have a good run blocker also. So Allen Robinson is a guy that I really am a big fan of, and yes, maybe his golden years are done, but I was looking for a receiver who could step in at the number 2 spot, but also kind of help Marvin Mims in his development. He has that player mentor tag. You can kind of see the pattern that I'm using here in free agency. I'm going after mentors to help out our younger guys because, like I said, I want to build this team through the draft, and I think that Allen Robinson will definitely help with the development of our young receivers. We have Kyle Phillips, we have Marvin Mims, we have Tutu Atwell. All those guys will need mentors, and we decide to offer Allen Robinson a 2-year contract. Off-ball linebacker. I want to make sure I'm attacking all of our needs in both free agency and the draft. Like, I'm not going to say I'm plugging one hole and then I'm not going to fill it in one area of filling this team. So I'm going to go after Zach Cunningham just as an insurance policy, just in case we don't find what we like in the draft. But here we start to evaluate the offers here in stage 1, and 4 players disappear, but for a good reason. Micah Hyde, Irv Smith Jr., Allen Robinson, and James Houston IV all agreed to their first contract offer. That is awesome. I am so excited for all of these players. Like, these aren't big name players. Micah Hyde is, but nobody else really is. But I'm happy because we filled the needs that we needed. And also it opens up the potential to find even more depth in the draft. So we did not really find the elite pass rusher we were looking for. That's still probably a big need. And we also didn't address cornerback. But let's move over to the offensive side of the ball and look at quarterback. Jameis Winston's available. I think that he's still got some stuff left in him. I'm going to give him a 2-year contract, about $4 million, and he will agree to that. That was an easy contract right there. $4 million to be the backup. And if I don't like it, I can cut him because I did not give him a bonus. Like, we will not get any penalty. I mean, but we have all the cap room. The penalty probably wouldn't matter. But now we move on to phase number 3 in free agency. And there's one big hole we have not addressed yet, and it is right tackle. We let Isaiah Wynn walk. He's still interested in returning to the team, but there is a better and younger option in Terrence Steele. I looked up Terrence Steele's stats playing for the Cowboys, and he was excellent. Like, Pro Football Focus had him giving up 1 sack in 2022, and I think 2 sacks in 2021. So it's just amazing that he is available here, and the Cowboys did not re-sign him. He's also 1 year younger than Isaiah Wynn. He's got better attributes than Isaiah Wynn. I think what we did by letting Isaiah Wynn test free agency was a good move, because now we get to offer a premier right tackle in the NFL, pretty much over $100 million if you're counting the bonus, $112 million, but his salary will be 4 years, $20 million a year. And that will pay him a total of $112 million with that bonus. And I want to be realistic. That makes him a top 5 tackle as far as salary goes in the league. And he will accept that offer. So looking at the recap, we sign almost all of our needs, but it doesn't necessarily mean that these are going to be starters. I want to emphasize we are going to be building this team from the draft, and free agency will help, but I do want to make sure that I get guys that fit And I think the draft is a great evaluation. I mean, obviously there's a ton of guys to pick from. There's no salary negotiations. You just pick who's available and who you want on your team. So that's how we will build this up. A couple of big free agent moves. I was very curious to see, who would go where. And it looks like the NFC South is like loading up on talent. I mean, Rasul Douglas, you have Odell Beckham, you have all these guys going to the Panthers, Falcons, and Eagles. Like, that is just crazy. And then also, how about Donovan Peoples-Jones? You have Damian Harris and Amari Cooper all going to the Detroit Lions. That will be an interesting situation. The Bengals end up getting Noah Fant. Laviska Shenault goes to the Falcons. I don't know what's up with the NFC South. Ronnie Harrison goes to the Broncos. Good for him on a 2-year contract. And then the Lions also get Greedy Williams. So one important part of scouting is making sure you have your guys selected for every workout throughout the year. I think I forgot to do super focus. Now, it says that that's 3 weeks long. Does that mean that it's 9 players during the season, or it's 3 players total and then they just give you information over 3 weeks? I'm not exactly sure. I did do it earlier in the season and I did a couple of players, but there are a few guys I want to get a better idea on. First is LaMarcus Mills, the pass rusher, but second is Terrell Anderson. Now, Terrell Anderson is interesting. He is one of the, in my opinion, the top coverage linebacker in the entire draft. He is super athletic. Everything is either good or great. Look at these skills, though. Obviously, he's not going to be rushing the passer, so I don't really care about finesse and power moves. Off-ball linebacker was one of those needs. He has a zone coverage, and I think he could also have a man coverage. So he's going to be one of the 2 players I will be adding here. But I actually go back and evaluate what I really need. And I look at cornerback. I think I need to be sure. I also need to be sure at if we do select a quarterback. So I actually switch it up a little bit. I thought I was going to be adding Anderson, but I need to be sure if I go and select a quarterback. So I add Nate Donovan. And Nate Donovan is elite. He could definitely be our 2nd round selection. I initially came into the offseason thinking I wouldn't draft a quarterback, but if one's there and he is great, I mean, why not take that flyer? He is athletic, he's got an elite arm, and he's honestly like Carson Wentz coming out of college. I mean, the potential is there. He just doesn't have the size. Then there's LaMarcus Mills, who we get a 100% scouting progress on, and he comes back as a round 1 to 2 talent. I'm actually pretty surprised by this. He has A awareness, A tackle, A injury, A finesse moves, B impact block, B pursuit, and then C power moves as well. I think this is a good pass rusher. I'm not sure why he's round 1 to 2 talent. Does that mean that there's much better talent at pass rusher in this draft? I'm not sure, but that definitely scares me off a little bit. But we do get some confirmation on Casey Burton. I've been looking at him all season long, and it turns out he is the 2nd fastest cornerback in the draft. He has one of the best ball skills in the draft. He has A catching. He has B man coverage, B zone coverage, B block shedding. So he's going to get after and make some tackles with C tackling, and then B press. I mean, you can do anything you want with him on the field, and I'm very excited. And honestly, he's skyrocketed up my board as a round 3 to 4 projection. Could be my 1st round pick. So going into draft season, I want to make some trades, and I really want to just try to get some draft picks because I'm starting to see some talent in the mid rounds, and Sky Moore definitely has a lot of trade value. He's 23 years old. I do think he will at most go for a mid-round pick. We have the difficulty on hard for trades, so we can't get too much out of him. And honestly, I wouldn't want to because we're rebuilding this very realistically. We agreed to a deal with the Patriots, sending Sky Moore in a 7th round pick for their 3rd round pick. So we move into the 3rd round for a 2nd time, and actually this is back-to-back picks for us in the 2nd round. The Patriots were actually picking right before us. So we have picks 17 and 18, I believe, in the 3rd round. And now one guy I want to also offload, who I haven't been even saying his name at all, is Cordell Flott. I mean, he is a guy that I have not used. So why even keep a guy around that's not going to be used? He wasn't great on special teams or anything like that. So I look at a team like the Steelers who needs cornerbacks and they need that depth. He will be their number 3 cornerback. So we decide to get a throw-in player from them to equal out their salary cap and then a 4th round pick. So we pretty much trade flat for a 4th round pick. And here is what our draft picks look like going into the draft. We have a 1st round, a 2nd round, 2 thirds. We have 4 fourths and a 7th. So that 4th round I think is going to be very, very important. A lot of picks available there. We also could use those picks to move up. So here we go. The number 1 pick of our first ever NFL draft, Brian Page, quarterback out of Ohio State. I think it was known around the draft circles that he was going to go number 1. He ends up going there. Number 2 is Danny McCord, quarterback out of Kansas State. So he is the first quarterback off the board. I was hoping that Chris Blackburn would maybe fall a little bit. I would have maybe tried to move up to possibly get him. He goes 3rd. Eric Choice goes 4th. So already 2 pass rushers and a quarterback go off of the board in the first 4 picks. Next, Mitchell Duggan goes off the board. I didn't do any scouting on him, so I have no idea how good he is, but he goes to the Seahawks. The Packers are on the board next, and I'm not even sure who they picked. But Brian Woodard, who was mocked to us early on in the year out of Clemson, he goes to the Rams at pick number 9. And here is our pick. The Patriots pick right before us. They pick an offensive lineman. And we first start to look at some of the trade packages that are offered to us, I should say, for this pick. There are some very, very intriguing offers. The Tennessee Titans want to give us a 1st this year and a 3rd next year. The 49ers offer 2 1st-round picks and a 5th, but one of the 1st-round picks is for next year, and the other 1st-round pick is for 2 years from now. They are definitely going all in on winning a Super Bowl with that offer. That is very, very intriguing. And I would try to get their 1st-round pick this year. I actually tried, but they were not willing to budge on that. The Philadelphia Eagles offer a 1st this year and a 2nd next year. That's actually a pretty good offer. The Colts offer a 1st this year, a 5th, and a 6th in the future years. I ultimately decide to settle on this Vikings offer. They offer a 1st this year, which is only 8 picks back, a 4th round, and another pick, which is a 3rd round 2 years from now. So we will move back in the draft to number 26. And remember, our number 1 guy going into this was now Casey Burton. And he was projected as a 3rd or 4th round pick. And he is available here for us to select. He is a round 1 talent. And I don't want to really make a mistake here. I want to draft a sure thing. I look at his skills. He has A catching, B man, B press, B zone. And we are the best fits. Aggressive ball hawk, has a motor, and he ends up being hidden dev trait. He comes in with 95 speed. He was the 2nd fastest cornerback in the draft, and he is headed to Houston to become our 1st draft pick of this series. Very, very excited. 6'2". He's got excellent size. He's going to fit in probably as the number 1 cornerback right away. Unfortunately, before we get to our next pick at 18, Nate Donovan goes off the board. So we only had 5 more picks until Donovan was going to fall to us. I'm sure he probably would have been the selection. So now, with our 2nd round pick at pick 18, I decide to look at other quarterbacks. Ross McDermott is here out of Florida. Very, very good in college. He really was prolific, but Florida for some reason did not generate wins. So not sure it was his fault, but he was definitely a guy that was very, very good, put up good stats, but Florida just didn't win a lot. His center, Sean Harris, is somebody that I'm looking at here. Like, he is a very, very good player. A awareness, A impact block, A pass block, and A run block. He's projected a 2nd or 3rd round pick, and he is an option here. Then there's Max James. I said I wanted to add an edge rusher. Max James is the best available edge rusher. He's got A power moves, C block shed, but A awareness. But I look at our offensive line, and our interior is just not good. So I end up going back to Sean Harris and looking at him, And he will be our selection with our second pick in this draft. And he ends up being hidden dev. He is 21 years old too. So we get a young lineman, and linemen are very, very important to draft in Madden because they don't get many XP upgrade opportunities besides getting like major milestones. You don't get to train with them. You don't get to do anything like that. They just get XP through practice. So moving on to our third round pick, the Broncos have a couple of picks before us, but Logan Harrington goes off of the board. He was one of the top quarterbacks remaining on the board here in the third round. And now we have back-to-back picks. We have the third round pick we acquired from the Patriots and our own pick. So we can really do whatever we want with these two picks. It doesn't really matter the order. But one guy I really, really like, and I've liked throughout this process, has been another Florida prospect in Callum McDermott. So we end up scouting their quarterback, their center, and their tight end. And we're going to end up coming away with both the center and the tight end. He is an excellent blocker. He has excellent catch in traffic. He's honestly the mold of Bob Tonyan, and that's what I was looking for in the draft. I thought that missing out on Bob Tonyan in free agency was a big miss. We draft him. He's 6'6", 265. He's going to fit in right next to Irv Smith. Those two will be a 1-2 punch at tight end. It's always important to have two. So our next pick, which is literally the next pick in the draft, I'm looking at a couple of guys. I missed out on Anderson earlier, and I said that he was the best coverage linebacker in the draft, but I did find a very comparable linebacker in Dave Washington. I'm really looking for an off-ball linebacker that is athletic, that can stay with bigger targets, that can run with them, and can also jar the ball loose if he has to, and Dave Washington fits that mold. He is only 6 foot, but he is 87 speed, 88 acceleration. He's got the quickness and speed to keep up with receivers as well. And he will be our pick here. So we go tight end and off-ball linebacker. Now we get to our bevy of fourth-round picks. And we're going to just shoot them off one by one. And one thing that we have really not gotten yet was one of our biggest needs, and it was pass rusher. I'm definitely looking at a few guys. The first is Manny Babineau. He goes to Bethune-Cookman. He is 21 years old, and I like drafting 21-year-olds because it feels like you have extra years of having lower XP to get them to the next level, because the younger they are, the lower it costs to upgrade them. Eric McCray is also another option. He goes to Notre Dame. He has B power moves, C finesse moves. I don't think you're ever going to find, well, I don't want to say ever, but I don't think you're going to find too many guys that have A power moves or A finesse moves here in the fourth round. Derek Copeland is next. He is an athletic pass rusher. He is the second fastest remaining 40-yard dash on the board, and I decide to go with him. He ends up being another hidden dev trait. I don't know what is up here in this draft. Maybe this is just a deep class, but we have been on a roll. Every pick so far has been hidden dev, and it might continue here in the fourth round. So now we're at pick 10, and our next pick would be pick 18. So we pick about 9 picks apart. And now we get to a point where I'm going to try to add to the secondary. And one guy that has been very, very high on my list, he's way down here in day 3 projections. It's Monty Marshall. The game knows. They say he's a top fit with the Oilers. He's a savvy defender with the ball in the air. His one downside is that he has marginal speed. Like, he is not fast at all. But I'm thinking that might not matter, because Chris Harris Jr. had 6 interceptions as a nickel corner, and he was only 88 speed. So I take a gamble on Monty Marshall, and we have our first normal development player. He's 6 foot out of West Virginia. He still actually has really good acceleration at 93 with 91 agility and 88 change of direction. We will get into his ratings a little bit later during the recap of the draft, but I like what I see from him despite his speed. Next, we go to our number 18th pick of the fourth round. As you can see, a lot of rookies going to compete right away, and why not add that competition to the pass rushing room. Eric McRae is still there. He's got B power moves, and he could be interesting. But I find a diamond in the rough, in my opinion, in Terrell Harvin. Harvin is one of the strongest defensive tackles in the draft. He had 39 reps on his bench press. He's got A play recognition, A to C block shedding, and we go with him. He is a hidden dev trait player here in the 4th round. How many have we had so far in the draft? He is 6'2", 340. He can move a ton. Look, I don't know, but right now it looks like he could be a legit starter. I don't know what his overall will be, but having a guy that has high strength and has high play rec, it can go a very long way. So with our final pick here in the 4th round, I decide to go with Manny Babineau. I looked at all 4 of those defensive players, and I decided to get every single one I looked at except for McRae because we just missed out on him. He just went off of the board, and now we're at another pick here in the 4th round. Pick number 32. So here's what I decide to do. All of the quarterbacks that we scouted are officially off the board. So I decided to send a scout on a trip, just watch all the film you can on a lot of these quarterbacks that we may miss out on scouting. And he did that, and he came back with Philip Waters. Philip Waters is interesting. He is mobile. He is accurate very, very similarly to Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Pretty good medium, pretty good short. He has really good speed, but his downside is that he's undersized. He's 5'11", but I don't care about that. But his real player comparison, his pro comparison, is Dorian Thompson-Robinson. He's got 92 throw power, just like DTR. He's at 84 speed, which is a tick under DTR. And like I said, great short to medium, terrible deep accuracy. So it's going to be funny to develop 2 similar quarterbacks, but that's what you want to do. So we move to the 7th round, and our final pick of this draft is going to be a fullback, Austin Kingsbury out of Boise State. I don't have much on him, but I needed a guy who can be a good lead blocker, and he was the best lead blocker in the draft. So that concludes our draft here as we look closer at our rookies, and Casey Burton ends up being as good as advertised. I'm not sure he's quite generational. Obviously, when we reveal his dev trait, we will get more information on that, but I don't know what he's going to be right now. He's at least going to be a star, but in my opinion, he is as good of a home run as you can get late in the 1st round at pick number 26. I mean, this was an amazing, amazing pick right here, projected as a 3rd to 4th round pick, and he ends up being that good. In the 2nd round, we selected Sean Harris, and Sean Harris is just as good as advertised. He comes in as the number 13th ranked center in the whole NFL. Look at these ratings. He's almost had 80 plus everything, including 88 impact blocks. So running up the middle will not be a problem any longer with Sean Harris. I'm very, very excited for him. Also, Callum McDermott. I mean, Callum McDermott could end up being maybe our leading receiver at tight end, to be honest with you. He's got an 84 catching, pretty good. He's got high awareness right now. He's not a bad blocker. I think him and Irv Smith are definitely going to be getting the ball quite a bit. I like these pass catchers that we've assembled here with this offense. I think DTR has a lot of weapons at his disposal now. Dave Washington ends up being hidden dev too. He is 70 overall. I wouldn't say that this is a starter right now, but Washington has the athleticism. I thought he was going to come in here with higher man and higher zone, only 63 man and 71 zone. Maybe that A grade was based on obviously the other guys at his position, and it just wasn't that good. So he ends up being a lot lower than what I would have thought, but I guess that's okay. Derek Copeland came in as hidden dev. I was really banking on him having a higher block shed, and a higher finesse moves, but it only ends up being 72 and 73, but that's okay. Now, he is an Iron Man, though. He has 99 injury, which I love, and he has every pass rush trait pretty much, except I believe the bull rush. I think that's the one pass rush move that he is missing, but he has the swim, he has the spin. He's going to be pretty good. Monty Marshall was maybe our best pick based on where we selected him. He was selected in the 4th round, ends up being 76 man. I wish that zone coverage was higher. It's only at 65, but 74 play rec. This is not a bad start for a rookie cornerback, to be honest. And maybe that shows that either this cornerback group in this draft was pretty deep, or we just did a good job at scouting. Who knows? I thought that Terrell Harvin was an incredible find. I thought that this guy was amazing when I found him. I couldn't believe it that I found a guy that could be this impactful. But I look at his numbers and I'm actually kind of underwhelmed. 69 block shedding, 65 power moves, 63 finesse moves. I was expecting maybe the block shed or power moves to be in the 70s, but play recognition at 76 is actually really good as a start, so I shouldn't really complain. He was a 4th round draft pick. Manny Babineau is going to be a interesting player to develop. He's got a good blend of block shedding and pursuit. They're at 75 and 76 respectively. I don't know. I want to see what I've got out of him. His awareness is lower, which probably brings his overall down. So we'll have to see what we get out of Manny Babineau, but I'm actually kind of happy with that selection. Our final 4th round pick ends up being Phillip Waters, who actually comes in as a pretty decent overall at 68 as a rookie, as a 4th round rookie at that. 81 short, 76 medium, 92 throw power, 78 throw on the run, 77 break sack. Actually really, really good, and in the 70s with throw under pressure and play action. This isn't a bad backup. I'm very, very happy about that. Remember, we signed Jameis Winston. There's going to be a battle for those 3 quarterback spots. It's either going to be Waters, Jameis Winston. We still have Case Keenum, and then DTR is obviously our starter. And then with our final pick, we chose Austin Kingsbury. He's going to be the starter at fullback. I definitely wanted to just reset at this position, but I like his numbers, his attributes. 82 lead block, 73 run block, 76 strength, and 77 trucking. I think we had a really good and solid draft. This is a great first draft we had. But let's just look around the league really quickly. Ryan Page is an animal. This is probably the best draft pick I've ever seen. Number 1 overall, generational if there ever was one. He's elite in everything. And honestly, the injury rating was an F for him. He's still in the 80s, so I don't really understand that. And he's 98 speed. Danny McCord, drafted number 2 overall. We faced the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this year, so we will be able to face him right away in season 1. He looks generational too. And then there's Chris Blackburn. There's one guy in the entire draft I regret not trading up for or going after. It's definitely Chris Blackburn. 88 power moves. Just crazy, crazy, crazy. He is a generational player. I believe there were a few of them in this draft, and Chris Blackburn was definitely one. Man, is he good. I think we missed out on that elite pass rusher we have been looking for. That probably means that we probably wouldn't have got Casey Burton, so I don't know how mad I can be. But Mitchell Duggan was another generational player. I said I didn't do any scouting on him, and he has one of the 99 club ratings. He is 99 speed as a quarterback. Nate Donovan, who we scouted as one of our private workout guys, he ends up being elite. 92 speed, 89 acceleration, great throw power, great throw accuracy. He is athletic. He can do it all. Maybe a miss, but I think we still had a really good second round pick despite not getting him. And we already had a quarterback. It's not like we absolutely needed him. LaMarcus Mills was one of the best pass rushers, so the Cardinals doubled down on pass rushers in this draft. They need it anyway. Eric McRae ends up being a decent pick. Max James ends up being really good too. I would say that out of all these players, it would go Blackburn, Max James, and then Mills as far as pass rushers go. I really did like Max James. I was very close to picking him, but we passed up on him. We had a lot of holes. It wasn't just pass rush, so we really had to address a lot here in the offseason. But the Broncos end up selecting Russell Wilson's replacement. He will wear number 18 too, Peyton Manning's number, so he's got some big shoes to fill. He is incredibly accurate. He can throw it all around the field. He can move around a little bit, but that's not really his style. Like, he is a pocket passer. He's going to be fun to play. We play the Broncos week 3. The Chargers' first pick was Taylor Gibson, so they really wanted to shore up on that defensive back group. But, man, he has 64 man. When we play them, we got to pick on him a little bit in man coverage. They also selected Jamie Mills in the second round. He's okay. I wouldn't say he's great. He will just play next to Derwin James. And then the Chiefs end up selecting an offensive lineman in the first round and the quarterback to back up Mahomes in the future. So let me know what you guys thought of the offseason we just had. I had a lot of fun, and that draft took me a long time. Like, I did a lot of scouting. I went through pretty much every player in the draft, tried to find the best players, the best fits, and I think we did a good job of filling out our roster. The final step in the offseason heading into season 2 is I am going to be filling out those undrafted players. So all of the guys that we have after the draft that we will be picking up for the preseason roster will be renamed to some of you guys that will hopefully make the roster and hopefully have an impact on the active roster. And I will only rename guys that actually make the roster. So I will highlight that before week 1's episode. So that's going to do it here for the offseason. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hit subscribe, hit that like button, stay tuned. Let's get it. Let's go.